Today we have for our, what is this? This is September professional development workshop for the Center for Music Education at Georgia College. We have Brent McDonald, who is one of our recent graduates from the Masters of Music Education program and my former graduate assistant. So I'm very excited to have you back, and you're going to talk to us about balancing work and life and also going to graduate school because you did it.
That's right. Yeah. Thanks for having me, Dr. HD. Yeah. I enjoyed my time at GCSU in the program. And just to give everybody a idea of who I am, where I'm from. So again, my name is Brent McDonald. I did recently graduate. And when I say recent, like in May. So the program is still fresh in my mind. And so I think I can offer some insight as to how you might be able to navigate some challenges you might come across either pre-service or in service. So anyway, I'm in my third year of teaching elementary music in Cobb County. I teach at Belmont Hills Elementary. I in a second career, I know I'm a little old to be in my the third year of just third year teaching, but this is my second career. I was a professional gigging musician for about 25 years. I had a degree, or I got my degree in music performance and guitar, and then have subsequently completed the MAT program at GCSU. So I'm also, and this all factors into what we're talking about today. I'm also a husband of 20 years and father to three teenagers. One that's just started at University of South Carolina, is in the marching band. Been in the band programs in high school, so I'm going to touch on some of that too. My daughter's in dance, so we have my middle son plays travel baseball, so we are all over the place. So maybe I might be able to relate to some of you, or might relate to something that you might be involved in the future with teaching. So again, I came to elementary music kind of alternatively, but I've been in education my whole life by way of my mother and my wife. So my mother's a retired elementary teacher, not music, but just for mostly first to second grade. And my wife is currently a kindergarten teacher in Cobb County as well. So I've been around education my entire life. So I've seen a lot of what not to do and maybe some things that work out. So I'm going to touch on some of those today. But the whole point of today is to offer just some things that I've experienced that might help you. And this came from Dr. Wuscher last semester. He asked the question, are you surviving or are you thriving? So and I'm going to be completely honest with you. The 2 years during grad school, and I don't know why I thought it was a great idea to start grad school and my first year of teaching at the same time. Hindsight, I might have waited a year, but I did it and I got through it. So if I can do it, anybody can do it. But I will say that yes, those first 2 years did feel like surviving. But the only way I was able to survive is by doing some of these things that I'm going to talk about today. And I think I've kind of set myself up. I don't still feel like I'm like, the top of my game thriving right now, but I'm getting there. This is the first year without school. So I'm kind of able to navigate some things a little bit better. So I want to start with a few key things, though. And I've got some notes right here, so I'm looking to the side and keeping on track here. Before I start the slideshow, I just want to, and my wife said this morning when I was walking downstairs to get on, and it really hit me. And I was like, you know what? She is 100% right. She said, find your people. And I think that's true for students. And I think it's even more true for us when we get into the professional world. And especially in education, because man, you have so many different people, different types of people, different attitudes, and you find out that first week who you align with. And so I will say that struck me this morning. I think it's very, very critical that I make that point, that it's find your people as soon as you can, whether it's your team, whether it doesn't have to be your team, it can be somebody in a different position in the building or whatnot. So that's first thing. Two, don't be afraid to say no. Okay? I've learned that from so many veteran educators, because if you say yes the first time, they will come back to ask you to do it again. And I'm going to touch on that in a little while as well. Uh, and this is the biggest thing for me, not being inside education, like teaching for so many years professionally. Logic does not always represent itself in education. Okay, you just have to understand that. If it doesn't make logical sense, it doesn't matter. It's sometimes it's just not going to make sense to you, and that's okay. And you just got to move on. I really struggled with that my first year. I'm like, why are we doing this when this makes the most sense? Doesn't matter. It's not, you're not in control. It's not your school. Okay. Two, you can't control admin. You can only control your reaction to admin. Okay. Admin's going to do what admin's going to do. Okay. If you got a good one, that's great. If you don't, you just got to deal with it. Okay. I've learned that. Don't take things personally. Okay. Teachers, everybody has bad days. They'll say something kind of short and snippy. Don't take it personally. And don't take it personally if you get some blanket email that is really should have been sent to two people, but it's sent to you because it's, they're just trying to blanket it. So just don't take things personally. Okay. And then finally, I think this is, in addition to find your people, I think this is probably the biggest one. And I touched on this in some of my presentations during school, is give yourself some grace. Okay. You are not going to build Rome in a day. Okay. Give yourself some grace. Know that you're going to fail. I had to do that. That's the only way. I told myself, I'm going to give myself 5 years before I really start to say, okay, are you really a good educator or not? Like, I know I'm learning. So if you just have to tell yourself that, and you have to have some grace. Okay. All that to preface what we're about to talk about. So I'm going to start the slideshow. Let me pull this up. And when we get to the end of this, I'm happy to take questions, or if you have comments. Just because I say it doesn't mean it's true for you. Okay. And you might have some ways that would benefit others as well. So I'm happy to listen to this as well. All right. So we're here to talk about finding balance as a music educator, but also as a music educator in grad school. So I just want to talk quickly about why it matters. Okay. One thing that struck me when I first started teaching is that, how a lot of times people, or one of the first things I learned was, if a child's hungry or a child's scared or a child has experienced trauma, it's very hard for them to learn. Okay. And I think that kind of echoes in the music educator world as well, is that if we're stressed, if we're having struggles in our personal life, or if we're having, maybe some health challenges too, that can all affect how we teach. So I just want to make it clear that, this work-life balance, work-school balance really, really does matter in your performance. And, one of the things I like to say is, like, you can't, or you can't be your best if you don't act your best. So we have to make some decisions how we act professionally and at home to make sure that we're providing the best education for these kids that we can. All right. Now, as music teachers, we do face some, some unique challenges that maybe other teachers don't face. For me, I'm in elementary music, so I am the only music educator in the school. Now, if you're in middle school or high school, you might have a team, if you have an orchestra teacher or a band teacher or assistant band director, that kind of thing. For me, my challenges have been kind of feeling like I'm on an island at my school. It's very isolating when you're the only person there that understands what you're doing and that can, I can't go to the art teacher and ask her some suggestions on how to teach, certain content. So I think one of the things that I really had to focus on was connecting with other teachers in the district and my surrounding teachers, kind of in my cluster, and in our feeder schools as well. So we have a mentor teacher, and if your district doesn't have a program for new teachers that has a mentor teacher, I really, really strongly suggest that you get one and find that person that could kind of be in your corner and kind of take you under their wing for at least the first year. And that to me, I had a mentor teacher at our school. Our district requires a mentor teacher at the school and a mentor teacher from the fine arts department. So I had two, and like I honestly don't think I would have been able to do it without these two. So 100%, I recommend that if your district does it. Also, there's a lot of extra stuff that we have to do as music educators, whether it's rehearsals and finding repertoire, that sort of thing. So planning and prepping is kind of a big deal, as opposed to maybe if you have curriculum that's already written for you and some other content areas, but planning, avoiding last minute stuff will be definitely something that will you'd want to do. Okay. So I'm talking about time management. I will be the first to tell you I am not great at time management. Kind of with, I think a lot of times a lot of creatives are kind of, I've always been kind of just kind of go with the flow, and I'll do it when I get to it, and when I get to it, I'll be really focused. So I've had to learn a lot about effective time management strategies. One of those is blocking time, and I know Dr. HD does this with grading. Like on Mondays, or at least it was, I think during our time, Mondays was her grading day. So she
It
made
still
sure.
is.
Okay, so Monday, have that time that every week this is what's going to happen at this time. I think that keeps you focused. My time for me is in the morning. I don't stay late. I go in early. I'm an early morning person. So I will go in early personally. And I know some people will say, well, don't give them more time than they pay you for and all that stuff. But for me, for my stress level, I go in early, and that's when I focus on getting a lot of things done. The batching tasks. So for me, when I'm batching something, for example, I will take whenever I have my time allotted, I will work on, say, chorus. So during that time, I'm calling the venues to talk to them about scheduling performances. I'm sending communication to parents for chorus. I'm making copies. I'm making presentations of lyrics with the music so the kids can see that while we're rehearsing, that sort of thing. So I think grouping them together in one, for me, it's made me feel like I'm kind of um, gaining some traction and getting things done. Planning ahead. I can't stress this enough, and I am not a planner. My wife would be very happy to tell you that she agrees with me, but planning ahead has been a challenge for me. But this year, I think I've made some headway in that. For example, um, I did not plan ahead last year when ordering T-shirts for my chorus, and it came down literally to the wire, and it was so stressful for me. And even though that's a small thing, like just T-shirts, you think, but that was a stress that didn't have to happen had I just sent the sheet out 2 months ago or right whenever chorus started. Hey, what's your size? And let me go ahead and order these. So little things like that you think might be insignificant, but when you start adding them up and stacking them up, they become a big thing. And sometimes I would feel like it wasn't really a stressor, but then when it was over, I felt so much better, and then I realized it really was a stressor. So planning ahead, whether it's ordering T-shirts or whether it's even your lesson plans, it's such a priority that you need to pay attention to. And then setting, that leads me to setting priorities. So um, making sure that you are tackling the right things at the right time. I am a classic example of I will do the small, kind of more insignificant things because I feel like I'm making progress, which I am. But then I have the big elephant in the room that I need to take care of that I sometimes will kind of avoid because I don't want to face that. But I've really learned a lot about myself this past few years, and I'm really starting to understand that, man, you face that head on, and it might be that you have to have a challenging conversation with somebody. It might be you have to have a challenging communication home to parents or something like that. But the longer you wait, the worse it gets. So I found that tackling those really important things first, it alleviates a lot of that stress. If you think of the levels of stress of how big the task or whatever it is, that stress level probably matches the size of or the priority of that task. So setting priorities and making sure you're getting those things done in a logical order. All right. Now, setting boundaries. This is a pretty big deal when it comes to your personal time and making sure you protect it. Um, like I said earlier in the presentation today, that if you commit to something and you say yes to something, there is a very, very good chance you're going to be asked to do it again. And this is my example. Now, in our school, we're a small school. We don't have a lot of PTA involvement, but one thing the PTA does do is a school dance. And they knew that I had, well, what honestly, what happened was when I was supply teaching, of course, I was trying to get the job. I said, oh, I have all this DJ equipment and I have all these lights. Let me come in and I will, do the dance. And they're like, oh, yeah, great. Well, it's been year 3 and I'm doing the dance again. So I don't mind doing it. But it just goes to show that just be very sure that whatever you're saying yes to is something that you really want to do, because they will ask you to keep doing it again. Um, Also, it can sometimes be hard, especially when you're a new teacher. And I know it is for me still when they admin asks you to do something. It's hard to say no. And I look at some of my team, have been teachers. They're on the end of their career, and they'll tell you, "Don't do that. Don't do that." Well, sometimes it's easier said than done because it is hard as a young teacher because you're still making your name, still making your way in education. So it's hard to say no. But I think if you come up with a kind of a polite way to say no, or maybe to get out of it and think about it first. One thing I'll use a lot is like, oh, let me check my schedule and get back to you. And another one is I have a prior commitment, and just leave it at that. If it's something you don't want to do, and you're trying to protect your personal time, then definitely use those and don't feel bad about it. Because again, it all goes back to if you're not your best self, you're not going to be the best teacher you can be. So you got to protect that time. And, the school districts get plenty of your time. And anything extra, you should enjoy doing whatever the extra thing is. Now, of course, I understand if there's something that needs to be done, it can be a gray area, but for the most part, just make sure you have a strategy to say no in a polite way, and then just be mindful of the things you are saying yes to.
And Brent, if I
Yes.
can interject,
Sure. Oh, yeah.
if your administrator really, really wants you to do that, the next step they will tell you to do it. They won't ask you. So yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead when you're asked and say no if you want to. And if they come back with, well, you have to do it, then that's a whole different conversation.
Right. Yeah. There's the thing. Well, in our contract, some people call it voluntold. So, like I said, there are teachers that are at the end of their career. Well, they have a little bit different viewpoint on what they will do and what they won't do for the district because they're kind of at that point in their career. Me personally, I pretty much, I'll say yeah to just about anything. First of all, I don't really mind helping, and if as long as it makes sense to me, I don't mind doing it. But definitely, in our contract it says or other professional duties, which a lot of contracts say that. So, like Dr. HD said, if they come to you and they're saying, I need you to do this, or I'd like you to do this, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to ask you to do anything, too crazy. But if they're asking you to stay for 4 hours after school, then I might, for whatever reason, on a continuous basis, maybe then you can, look at some of those strategies. All right. Oh, sorry. Self-care techniques and stress management. I remember when I first started the program at GCSU, Dr. HD was talking about making sure you take care of yourself. And I believe, Dr. HD, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you would go, you make sure you did like a walk or a 20-minute walk, I think, every day or something like that. Is that correct?
I try to.
Yes. So I do the same thing. I try to walk my dog um, every evening for about 45 to 50 minutes. I also try to listen to calm music on the way to work. I've even used some meditation music, like when my kids come into the classroom, and that also helps me too. So, being mindful of um, your stress level and things that can help you navigate stress is a priority. All right. All right. So, support. And this is all going to go back to being in school and teaching at the same time. But while you're in school teaching, and I mentioned before, working with a mentor teacher or collaborating with other teachers, to get that, just the support that you can give each other because you understand what each other is going through. Um, One of the collaborations my son's school did when he was in high school, Hillgrove High and Kell Grove came together and they brought their bands together, and they had this whole they performed in competitions as Kell Grove. So I think doing that kind of, it not only is great for the students, but great for you and collaborating with fellow teachers, but also keeps things kind of fresh for you. As I could definitely see how it might, if you don't do things like that, things can get a little stale. Uh, Using tech tools. Okay, now this goes for school and for in the classroom. Of course, the big hot topic now is AI. Um, we have we finally got a directive from our district this year that we are allowed to use AI. However, um, it has to be whatever you are putting up that is AI generated has to be vetted. You have to check it, check for accuracy. And really, it's like basically when in your research writing class, you have to check your sources. Same thing, but just through AI. So using AI tools definitely is going to help reduce stress because you're not going to spend 30 to 45 minutes trying to craft the perfect letter for parents home. It could be a real quick thing. I don't recommend having AI write your lessons. I don't recommend AI doing the work for you. A, because it's not honest, and B, it just kind of for me it takes the creativity out of teaching and what you can do for kids. I do use Canva a lot. If you don't use Canva, I highly recommend using Canva, not only for teaching, but also for school, for grad school. I use Canva exclusively, and it's super easy. It's free for educators if you're in service. If you're pre-service, they may have a free version, but I highly recommend using that. And personally, I pay for mine simply because if I ever leave the district for whatever reason, all my stuff comes with me and it's not tied to that email address. Using Google Classroom, if you're not familiar with that, will help with, and I'm not familiar with Google Classroom. I just know teachers that use it. Personally, we have CTLS, which is our proprietary Cobb County digital learning platform. And it's not anywhere, it's not available anywhere else. But we use that for communication, for assignments, um, for just field trips now. I mean, we use it for everything. And it definitely helps with communication to help kind of alleviate some of that stress of trying to write a letter home and then get it printed out and get people signed it and get it turned in, all that kind of thing. Everything's done digitally for us. And, you know, parent volunteers, not so much for my class. I do have some parents that help, but I've seen it more in like band, high school band. My son's band at Hillgrove last year. I mean, they couldn't do it without parent volunteers. So making those relationships with parents definitely going to help you get things done. And you can, once you get to know them and they understand how things work, you can kind of put some tasks, hand them some tasks and say, I just need you to get it done. And then it's off of your plate. So just some ideas to help you alleviate some of that stress that comes along with, especially in high school, marching band. All right. And then involving, or your family, not only be involved in your music journey, but also how does family factor in to your music education? One thing I did last year, and it was really cool, is my kids came, and my wife and kids, and my brother and a friend from out of town came to a chorus performance for a holiday performance, and it was great. They got to see what I do. We got to hang out. They got to meet the kids. I think my personal kids, learned a little bit more about what I do, and I think they have a more of appreciation for what I do. And they're also involved in I still perform outside of school. I have a couple bands, and they help when we do big Christmas shows with that band. They help out. So if you have family that can be involved, I highly recommend that. Not only will they help you with some of the tasks, but it just lets them see what you do, and I think they have a better appreciation for it. And over here it says prioritizing rituals and nurturing personal hobbies to help maintain balance. Don't give up the things you love because you're teaching or because you're in school. You might not have as much time for it, but you definitely don't want to just, put everything aside, because then there goes the balance. Um, I still try to practice my instrument. I think that's a huge thing for people. Not only did I see in my son when he practices piano and guitar and sax that when he did all that, it calmed him down. And it was kind of like looking in a mirror for me. And I like realized, oh yeah, you know what? I don't do that as much anymore. I should really do that myself, not only for calming and stress levels, but also just to get back to the whole reason I started music in the first place. Guitar was my first real, well, the first real instrument for me. I tried others, but that was the one that spoke to me. And just kind of get back to my roots. I think that helps with sort of bringing some of the joy back into the music aspect, in the, because you're always teaching it, but it helps to go back and use your instrument to bring back some of that joy into your life as well as the teaching. So also, and it doesn't have to necessarily be just music or your instrument. I like to go paddling with my daughter. We do canoe trips, get out, go hiking, that sort of thing. I just think it's if you make it a priority to set aside some time to get out and do those things that give you joy. Okay, because I mean, teaching gives me joy, um, but it can be a different kind of joy than just the kind of doing your hobby, not mindless, but just having fun just for the sake of having fun. So, um, just something to keep in mind to keep doing things outside of music or inside of music that you like, but that's not tied to your professional life. All right. So now, balancing graduate school and teaching and family. This is kind of the meat and potatoes of why we're here today. I am not gonna lie. 2 years of grad school. It took me a little bit longer because I didn't have a lot of or any of the education courses. Um, the first semester was one of the hardest things I had to do ever. It was very, very hard. First year teaching, first year in grad and being in any sort of school for 20 something years. I started this program when I was 44. Um, and being a dad to teenagers and coming up through middle school and into high school. The one thing I had to do was I had to prioritize time for my family first. Now, that looked different from week to week. It was very hard with our schedule to prioritize. Well, this time every Saturday I'm going to do this because we were going three different directions, sometimes five different directions at the same time. So, and I know some people that were on our meeting sometimes saw this. There were many times I was at a baseball game and I'd go to my car to be on the meeting, the classroom meeting. Or I vividly remember there was a big band competition up in Beaufort, Georgia, and I was in my car writing one of my research papers, and I would take a break, go watch my son perform, and then come back, write a little bit more. And then they performed. They ended up winning, so they performed a couple more times. So it just requires some thoughtful planning and recognizing where you have time that you can fit something in. Like, oh, I can do this here. I'll have time to do this here. And it's not much different than your professional life, figuring out where you have time to complete your tasks. Um, but in the family world, I had to do the same thing. Now, for my schedule, pretty much my weekends were all work. I mean, I remember there were plenty of Sundays because now keep in mind I was still performing on the weekends too, so that was another challenge. But many Sundays, basically for 10 to 12 hours, I would do homework. Now, that's what worked for me. I still like on the weekends. I made sure at least one day on the weekends I would cook breakfast for the family. We'd have some family time, and then Sunday they knew, and it was kind of a joke here. They're like, "Well, Dad, see you Monday." So Sunday I would start in the morning and I would work until that 11:59. I'd be hitting send on some of those assignments. That's what worked for me. Okay, that's how what I figured out that worked for me the best. That might not work for you, but I will encourage you to figure out what works for you early. Okay. Dr. HD gave, I know in our syllabus, she gave a sheet, and I had it hanging up in my office for 2 years. And it was Monday, I think it was like read over the assignments. Tuesday, make sure you do, or Monday was read over what's due. Tuesday was read over the required reading or whatever in that order. And you might have that. I would imagine you probably do. But there was that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I highly recommend that you do that because it saves you from being overwhelmed. I would get to about Wednesday and then my week just got away from me. But Sunday was my day I knew I'd get it done. So that's what worked for me. But making sure that you're doing a little bit each day will go a long way for you. Now, I wish I would have done it a little bit better, but that's not how it was. And I've joked a lot of times, especially when I toured in a band for forever, and I always tell people I can tell you how to do it wrong because we did a lot of things wrong. But just use some of my experience that I'm talking about now. I don't recommend doing 12 hours on a Sunday. I didn't enjoy that, but that's what worked for me. And maybe my experience might help you kind of maybe really think about and evaluate how you're going to do it. All right. All right. So reflection and growth. Um, I think this is probably the one of the biggest things about being an educator, about and not just education, just life in general. Um, Reflection and growth. I mean, that's kind of what we're here for, right? Um, and I'm kind of reflecting back now a little bit about my 2 years of being in grad school and recognizing some things I could have done better. But I encourage you to do that too, maybe even on a weekly or even a daily basis. I know with my lesson plans, I try to do that. With my teaching, I try to do that. With just my general disposition at school, I try to reflect about that. You know, if you're going into school with this, oh gosh, I don't want to be here. You know, well, that's probably how your day is going to go. I really try to find the positive. I was telling Dr. AC before we started, this year I got thrown a big curveball in my school. Um, we have two bridge classes, which are special ed classes. We have a core class, which is EBD class. We have extremely bad behavior. And it's been kind of a whirlwind for me and it's upended everything. Like all my lesson plans were geared towards, you know, pretty, you know, quote unquote normal classes, like just, you know, no, and when I say normal, I mean behavior wise. Like now I have six of those classes that are completely upended with behavior, and it really is a challenge. And I was did a little reflection actually yesterday at work, and I thought, well, if I can make it through this year, I think this might be probably the hardest it's going to get. So reflecting on what you're doing and finding silver linings is going to go a long way for your experience, not only in professional world, but just in life in general. Um, Development, focusing on development. You know, we're required in Cobb County, you know, you have to do certain things to for professional development. So, you know, that you might get that just naturally in your district, in your program, but I also encourage you to go and do it on your own. I know we're required to do ORF training uh, to get certified ORF level one. I totally plan on going back and doing my second level this year. I wasn't able to do it while I was still in school. It's just too much. And again, that goes back to the knowing when enough is enough and when to say no. Even though they asked me to do it, I said I can't do it right now. So focus on getting better and using those opportunities that your district will provide you as well to do that. Celebrate the wins. Now, I had a moment this week actually that I I was having a rough week. I was having a rough time with some of the behaviors. We had an incident happen, and it was really emotionally it was tough. And I really was thinking to myself, God, yeah, you know, am I really an effective teacher? And is this really what I need to be doing? I just don't know. And I think any profession, you're going to have that, I think, but more so sometimes with education, just because you're directly affecting kids. So I was kind of down a little bit, and I was observed. Now, thankfully, I was observed, and it was one of my best third grade classes. It was amazing. Everybody was engaged. It was fun, and she left me a really, really nice note. And reflecting on that, I think that was a win for me, and it really boosted my morale for the rest of the week. And just the acknowledgement that, yeah, everything that's been going on, and she knew all that's been going on too. But she still took time, and she didn't have to leave a note. She took time to tell me that you're doing a great job. The kids are engaged. It looked fun. So I had to take that as a win, and that was kind of like my win for the week. And but looking for those things, but if you don't look for those things, you're not going to find them. So there's a line, if are familiar with Tony Robbins, he'll ask you to look for everything that's brown in the room. So you look for everything that's brown, and then when you get done looking, he says, okay, tell me what you saw that was red. And of course, nobody can say anything because nobody's looking for red. So if you're looking for those little celebratory things, try to find them. That was mine this week. And finally, continuous improvement. You got to be willing to continually improve. And not that you're going to be that every day, but as long as you're making those little steps forward, I think that's what helps me stay on track, is recognizing that, yes, okay, I got better at this week. And not only in school, but also in your graduate program. I got better at writing a paper this week, or I got better at research this week. Recognizing those improvements and celebrating them as a win. All right. And finally, strategies for music teachers that I have found helps manage stress a little bit better, and also will free up some time to, well, not necessarily free up time. Anyway, let me just go through this real quick. Sorry. Exit tickets. Okay. I really struggle with assessments. I found exit tickets. Those are great. They give you a real quick feedback assessment right there before they leave the classroom. It also gives you some stuff to put into grade book and document what you're doing. Okay. Establish clear routines. I do a singing attendance every day. It's also assessment. I do a welcome song for every class. We do a mystery musician at the end of every class, which is another management for behavior, where they don't know who the mystery musician is going to be until they end the class. And in order for you to get the mystery musician and get a trip to the treasure box, you have to follow all classroom rules and expectations. Obviously, this is probably not going to be a high school or middle school strategy, but for elementary, this has improved my classroom. I can't tell you how much. I spent 2 years going, what am I doing with classroom management? And that's a stressful thing for me when I don't feel like I have control over that classroom. So establishing these routines.
High school and middle school would like the treasure box too.
Yeah. Well, I have learned that talkies trump everything. Like talkies are the ticket, at least in my school. Rubrics. Of course, I hadn't looked at a rubric in 20-something years until I got to school the 2 years ago for this program. But I will say that I understood how clear that was for me, because I could always refer back to it. And then when I give it to my kids, even little ones, my littles, you can present it to them in a way that they understand it, even though it's a rubric. I think that takes some of the questioning out of assessments, and it's reducing stress about, okay, well, does this kid really know what they're doing? Well, it says it right here, it's very clear. And then helping students reflect. Okay, we have to reflect as teachers, but also teaching student reflection is a effective strategy for classroom management. Encouraging students to reflect on their learning on their performances, how to critique other performances without in a kind way. I've noticed like just leaps and bounds this year by implementing that in every class. We do a creative movement every class. They share if they want to, and then people can offer what they liked, what they thought might be cool if they did something different. And my classrooms this year really, I think they really care about each other. And that has been a huge relief for me as far as classroom management and keeping my stress level down at school, thus in turn reducing my stress level when I get home. And it's kind of all builds like when I was in school, if I was super stressed when I got home from teaching, and then I had to do homework, and then I had to go to a class, it was just that was a tough day on your body. So all these things, while they might seem small stress relief, they do stack up, and at the end of the day, I think you'll notice a big difference. Um, you know, I'm sorry, something happened. You'll notice a difference in yourself and how you interact with the people around you. So that's almost it here. So just real quick recap. I talked about those 6 things in the beginning. Find your people. Don't be afraid to say no. Logic is not going to always be represented in education. You can't control admin, only your reactions. Don't take things personally, and give yourself grace. Give yourself grace. Prioritizing your time, setting your boundaries, and being open with communication, I think is going to go a long way for you. And just realizing where you can fit your school graduate program studies, where you can fit those into your schedule. And if you need to, make a schedule, write it out. Make sure you know that, okay, I have an hour right here today, and I have 2 hours, this day. I think that will go a long way for you. It did for me when I could do that. And I would love to hear any questions or suggestions, or if you have a way that you do, I would love to hear it because it might help me. So I'll kind of leave it at that. Get back here. All right, cool.
So you're looking for questions?
Yeah, any questions or?
You laid it out very clearly, I thought, So, hang on. I've got a question here, but it's not coming out. Solange and Anthony, go ahead and jump in if you have a question.
I didn't have any at this right now.
All right.
I think the biggest thing, though, is going to be what works for you. What works for me might not work for you.
No.
But figuring that out and try different things. It might not be perfect the first time. I know it wasn't for me,
And that's the thing. You talked about giving yourself grace, and then you say things like that. If everybody did as poorly as you do, then we'd be fine. So while you're talking about it, it's not going to be perfect any day.
No.
If it is, then somebody needs to call me and tell me how to make it work, because I do the best I can. And like you said, I grade on Mondays, I do this on Tuesdays. I have it very regimented, and I work really hard to keep all of that in place. And it's still, some days it just doesn't work. And then like you said, by the time I get to Thursday and Friday, I'm off my schedule and I'm tired, and I'm just trying to rest and hold it together till the end of the week.
Yeah. And, one example that I try, so I've been trying to figure out what grading works best for me, like how to record my grades and how to record my attendance. And I tried like digitally, I tried on my computer, then I tried on the iPad, I tried handwriting. And then finally I tried like my art teacher. He's like, hey, I do it this way. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense. So now I'm doing it by hand, but in a book, like a grade book. So, and that it took me 3 tries. And I feel like
that's okay.
And that's all right because, My mentor teacher told me one thing. She said, add one thing every year. Just do
True.
one new thing every year. Don't
True.
try to do it all. And this year I'm doing honor course, and they asked me to do festival. And I'm like, I'm not doing
Just
festival
one.
right now.
Yeah.
Just one. I'm gonna do one thing every year, especially when I was in school, you know,
Mm-hmm.
doing classes. I had to say no. And it's nothing personal for them either. It's just I know when I've had enough.
Well, and I know you didn't say no. You said, I can't do it, but let me help you find somebody who can.
Yeah, that or I can't do it this time, but I'd
Yes.
love to do it next time.
Which, we wouldn't love to, but we will do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, depending on what it is for sure.
So yeah, so you laid it out very clearly, and you actually have some wonderful slides. I would like to take your first slide where you had your 4 steps for kind of handling yourself.
Hmm.
I would like to take that and use that for myself.
Yeah.
All
Yes.
right. Solange, go ahead.
How many concerts are there when I get to Henry County? I didn't get a chance to read concerts yet at Social Circle Elementary.
That's okay.
I didn't hear what she said. I'm sorry.
Solange, do you have a question for Brent?
Okay. What's the concert schedule look like? Like rehearsal schedule, like in all grades? If I have a field supervisor,
What what's the schedule like for all grades? Is that what I heard?
Yeah,
I'm
what's your
saying
rehearsal
there's
schedule?
a
Oh, my rehearsal. Okay. Well, so I only have I have a chorus, and it's three through fifth. We're a very small school. We have
great,
250
great.
kids. We're super small. Um, my so I have rehearsal every Thursday, and it's an hour after school, and then we have a
Okay.
few. There are a few performances that I'm not. Again, those voluntold things. Um, there's one that's like kind of expected, but they also donate to our program, so it's kind of, and it's fun for the kids, and I've got no problem with it. But when I first started, they were like,
Right.
"Yeah, you got to do this." I have, I can add as
I
many.
agree.
Yeah, I can add as many as I want, but I try to keep mine to three outside of school for the winter. So we do one for the thing that it's called Christmas at Piedmont. I do one for the city of Smyrna, and what I started doing last
Nice.
year is I go to a retirement community as well with my chorus, but we do it the same
Oh,
night we
nice.
do our Smyrna city event because one, transportation is really hard for our families. Some of them take Ubers, some of them take taxis, that sort of thing.
Sure.
So, and they're within those two performances are within about 2 miles of each other. So I tell them we're going on tour, and
Yeah.
we do two. So we do two performances in one night, and
Do you
kind of
do the same
Nice.
show at both places?
yeah. Well, we do we only have about 10 minutes on the Smyrna one. So it's a huge thing for the city of Smyrna. So all the elementary schools in the area do it. So you have about 10 minutes. Do about three songs during that. And
Uh-huh.
then we'll do the whole program, everything
Okay.
the retirement community. But one thing we started doing too with the retirement community is like taking some instruments and getting them involved as well because they
Yay.
can shake a tambourine or a shaker or something along with it. They absolutely love it. So those are the three we do, and then in the spring, it's not as intense. I'm not required to do any, but we do a couple in the spring.
Outstanding. All right. Well, I think that's all the time we have for today. Thank you, Brent. That's
Yeah,
wonderful. You've given us a lot to think about, and hopefully it will help people who are in the position that you were in or who are considering going back to, graduate school or, whatever.
it's possible. You can do it. Just some planning. That's it.
All right, and thank you, Solange and Anthony. And we will see you, I think next month, Dylan Watkins is going to talk to us about surviving Bandtober. And I know that's going to be really specific to our marching band teachers. But that's an important, October every month is Bandtober because that's competition month. And, trying to survive that is a huge process. And maybe some of the things that our marching band directors do to survive Bandtober are things that our orchestra, chorus, and elementary teachers could do in other stressful times that they have.
Mm.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Brent.
Absolutely. And if you want me to send you the
Thank you for your
Canva
time.
link, I'm happy to do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. You guys have a
Thanks,
great
everybody.
weekend.
All right, thank you.